Welcome back to Breaking Bullying. It's October, it's National Bully Prevention Month, and today we're going to discuss what is one thing a school can do to help prevent bullying. We'll get into it after I hit this music. Joining me for the third time, you're starting to become my favorite guest, is Dru Ahlborg from the Bullying Recovery Resource Center out in Colorado. Drew, thanks for coming back for the third time.
Wow, and almost a favorite guest. I don't know what I need to do to cross that finish line, but I'm willing to do it, Tim.
Did I say almost?
Or becoming, I think. I don't know.
Becoming my
I'm
favorite guest.
flattered, so it's all good.
I don't know. I forget to grow hair, so I don't know what I said 5 seconds ago. So, Drew, you've been on many times, and you've always got great information. As a person who works with families, that's kind of what you do for a living. You work with families who are kids are being bullied. This is a very big, loaded question, but actually, I'm gonna back up. Before we get there, tell us, for the people who don't know, what is the Bullying Recovery Resource Center?
So, Bullying Recovery Resource Center is a nonprofit located in Denver, Colorado. Our mission is we defend bullied children and help rebuild lives. So, we are dedicated to providing the resources, education, and advocacy needed to stop bullying and stem the long term impacts bullying has on its targets. So, we do that with a lot of education, education of the families we work with mostly. And advocacy. So we have a team of volunteer advocates that work with the families one on one to determine what is the best, I don't want to say solution because it doesn't usually get solved, but what is the best steps forward to help protect that child and hopefully get the school to stop the bullying, to do the right thing.
On average, are you able to say how many families you help a year?
So I just looked this up recently. We helped 90 new families last year. Now we were
Wow.
still working with some other families from previous years. So we had 90 new families contact us last year.
And you don't have to live in Denver, Colorado to use your services, correct?
No, we do work across Colorado, and the reason being that we're just in Colorado at this point is the state laws regarding harassment and bullying are different in every state. So we are not lawyers, but we know the laws here and we know how to educate to those laws and to hopefully use those to help the children we're assisting.
So, the big question of the day, it's
Yeah,
just one. What is one thing a school can do to help prevent bullying?
there's a lot of things. That's a loaded question,
A lot of
and
things? I was looking for one, Drew.
I know, but that so we'll narrow it down. And so I'm going to go with my first answer or my first
Okay.
thought, which is it's about the culture of the school and a culture that includes kindness, inclusivity, probably some social emotional learning too, is more likely to create a place where children are less likely to be bullied. Now it's still going to happen, but if the culture is such that that is taught, that is enforced in the classrooms, the teachers are on board, the school bus drivers, uh, the folks that work in the cafeteria, all the administrators, everybody's trained on bullying, as well as how to create this culture. And it can be taught. I had a school counselor tell me that kindness cannot be taught, and I just wanted to I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Of course it can be taught."
Yeah.
The first way is right by we get to show it ourselves, right? We get to treat people with kindness, we include them, we're compassionate. So it can be taught, and a school that has that as part of its culture is more likely to address bullying and stop it in a timely manner and have less, period.
I'm really curious that counselor is still a counselor. That's just a awkward statement for someone like him or her to say. Kindness cannot be taught. I feel
Yeah.
sorry for the school he works at.
It was a she, but yeah, it
As
was,
a she.
and she's no longer there. So
Okay, so culture, that's gonna start, that starts on both ends. It starts at home and
Mhm.
it's gonna start on school. So I
Yes.
know a lot of I'm on social media a lot. I'm on a lot of parent groups, always blaming the school. It's the school's fault, school's fault, school's fault. That may be half true, uh, but it also is how do you talk to your kids at home? You know,
Mm.
I used now next month we're electing a new president, so we're getting really nasty in the politics right now, which I don't talk about politics too often. But if you're a kind of parent saying, "Well, I hate this person because he's this and that," your
Mhm.
kids are gonna like, "Oh, okay, we don't like these people because they're gonna vote for this person." That's not teaching your kid kindness. So it's even simple things like that we gotta be more aware of. Keep your political views to yourself. Don't share it with your kids. Just be careful what you say around your kids. Now, on the school side of it, from what I see, since I'm running for school board next month, which I know you guys are all sick of hearing. Trust me, I'm being burnt out for running for school board. To be honest with you, it's a lot of work. I've been doing since April, but I've noticed, Drew, in my area, our district loves to label children by race. And I think that's very dangerous on one, just we're taking the human out of a kid now. We're giving them a color. You're they call students the whites and the non-whites, and they say it in public, and I have it on video. So, but my hope, if we're gonna try and bullying and try and teach kindness, if you wanna start labeling people, this one guest told me, "Well, if you wanna give somebody a good label, let's label people by blood type because that's
That's
the
good.
most important way to label somebody. Because if you're A positive, you're gonna need A positive blood, or you're B, you're gonna need B blood." Anyways, we need to start calling kids, all students, and really the only label that kids should have is students, the
Yeah,
students. Or one principal in my town calls them scholars, which is really that sounds so fancy. Like, yeah, step it up and call them scholars. Make a kid feel really important. That's a good thing. But calling kids by their race and saying we're only going to focus on this race of kids because of percentage wise, a few of that other race isn't passing, but percentage wise, that's okay. And I'm really having an issue with that. So hopefully, if I get in the school board, or if the school board does hear my messages, maybe they'll change that language a bit. Stop dividing kids up by race. Just treat everybody equally. And that would start with kindness as well too, because now we're treating
mhm,
everybody as a human being.
sure.
So that's going to change your culture. To stop dividing up people. Just all students are equal. They're all human beings. What else, Drew? Because apparently there's now a one simple answer to my question. So we got
You
culture all the
asked for the
way. The top
top.
one's culture. So which is a very very good one. What's
But
this?
but
What's a
I agree with what you're saying, and I think
yeah
we boy, it's gender, it's race, it's religion, and however, a child who's bullied that falls under those categories, like they're a different race or they have a different gender identity or something, there is more lands in harassment bill versus just bullying.
yeah
So there is more rights that those children have, and so that's important to note. However, I agree. I mean, kids are kids, right? I grew up in a place where probably half the school did not look like me, and they were not Caucasian. And I honestly thought it was like that everywhere. And then I moved in my junior year of high school, and I moved to a place in Colorado, and I found two people that didn't have white skin like me, and I thought, "What is going on?" And I didn't know all those nasty terms that I since learned after moving to a very different, environment. I didn't know those slang terms for different races or things like that, and, you know, eh, I can tell you from our experience in Colorado, schools that are more diverse, that have more, a nice mixed culture of kids have less bullying. There's some districts in Colorado that are very focused or are very there are a lot of white children and not a lot of other colors, and those kids are sometimes relentlessly bullied in those environments. There's not other kids that look like them, and it's not just the kids that are doing it either. It can be the teachers, it can be the coaches and things like that. So we have a we're not part of it, but there's a lawsuit going on in one of the counties in our state that is pretty egregious. So
hmm,
the whole school failed a family of, African American kids.
yeah.
So
What was your feedback from parents on how well schools listen? Because I feel like that's something that should be really easy to do. Is just to listen.
so you mean so they don't listen to the child when the child said something's going on, I'm being bullied, or even the
So
when parents go
yeah,
report it, or
it can be both. So, say my kid told the teacher that they were getting picked on. The teacher says, "Well, Johnny, they're just being a kid." Or you call the school as a parent, and my daughter is reporting that she's being called names. Can you look into it? And there's no, they say like, "We'll look into it," but there's no follow up. Or if they do follow up, they'll just say it's taken care of, but it still happens. Is that hard for schools to do these days, or what can a parent do to keep pushing the issue until they get? Because I feel like parents just need a clear answer on what's
Yeah.
gonna be done, and I understand there's privacy laws in schools, but you can
Mhm.
still I feel like you can still give us something. Like, we've talked to that student, it won't happen again. Just something like that. But I feel like we don't get that anymore either.
And we don't. We don't. Most parents don't get that. Well, the parents we work with don't get that. Now, I have talked to other parents that, have not used our organization that said, "Yeah, I report it. School took care of it. My kid's fine. Life is going on," and that happens, right? And
Yep.
now the parents that are contacting us, it's usually to a point. It didn't happen yesterday. It's been going on for a while. The kid no longer wants to go to school. There's a lot of fear. They might not want to get out of bed in the morning. It's it's pretty it's pretty dire. So, every school is different. At least in Colorado, there's different ways. Some schools or some districts in Colorado, you have to report via. There's an online form.
Yep.
Some, they want you to report it verbally. We always recommend with our families, no matter what, even if you report it verbally, you always follow up with an email. You always want to keep track of things. We recommend, if it's okay with the child, you report every instant. Hey, I know I talked to you last week that this happened on the playground. Today, they came home and said, this happened in the classroom. And it was, X, Y, and Z. And even that, if that's reported verbally, you follow up with an email. And if the school responds verbally, you follow up with an email again. Hey, when we talked about what happened today, you said XYZ. Is that correct? So you just kind of you have this chronological, picture of everything that's going on. And we can use that sometimes to kinda document everything as an organization and support our families, and it's something called a Gepser letter we can send out to the school. Says, "Here's the whole timeline. This is how many times it's been reported. This is what you said you've done. We don't see any evidence of any of that, or we don't know what's going on." And that kinda puts the school on notice. It's really pushing the school. For parents, if you're not getting anywhere, you're reporting it to the teacher, you're not getting anywhere, up to the next level, right? Is it the counselor? Is it the assistant principal? Is it the principal? Keep going up. Is it the SRO officer? Sometimes we have parents that we go to and address school boards with them. The school board doesn't know, they don't know that
Yeah.
something's going on, and it's usually not just one incident, if it's or not just one child. There's some schools are pretty egregious. So we've taken many families with us and addressed school boards as well.
Yeah, if it reaches a school board point, they've been dealing with it for a while. But I
Yeah.
did hear from a parent in my local town that when their son was being bullied, they went to the school board, and the school board, the person on the school board said, "Well, that's not my area to talk about. I only talk about equality." And parents like, "What are you talking about?" Like the lady from the school board just totally brushed it off. So they were left with nothing.
Wow.
Nothing got resolved. They could have filed a lawsuit. Apparently, they had a good case, but these people are well known in the community, and the last thing they want to have is these people's
Mhm.
names saying they just didn't want to deal with it, and the kid was already over with it. Time they kept
Exactly.
fighting it, but
Yeah.
still, do you know if schools actually have a good reputation of dealing with bullying and what they're doing?
So there's certain schools in our, in our metro area, especially that we've never been in. I've had schools come to me and ask, can you look at our policies and procedures? Do we have a right
Awesome.
definition of bullying? Are we looking at it? We have a law that was passed in Colorado several years ago that says if bullying is reported, the school is required to investigate for an imbalance of power. Schools aren't doing that, and that's what makes it bullying, right?
Yeah.
We have found that we have a culture of schools in Colorado, at least the schools that we deal with on a pretty regular basis, that don't ever want to call it bullying. They want to call it conflict. And
Yep.
I'm sure, Tim, you know that you
Oh, yeah.
cannot use conflict resolution with bullying.
Have you seen my videos? At school board
Yes, I
videos?
have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's also thank you to one of your board members, Barbara Coloroso, who gave
Mhm.
me a lot of information too.
She's amazing.
I always quote her in a lot of my videos. She
Uh,
says it perfectly.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, conflict. I just had a parent reach out to me back in school back in June this past year. Their kid was attacked. There was a violent attack, and they used conflict resolution techniques where the target of the bullying got in trouble because he didn't apologize to his bullier. And I've had a guest on. So last week's episode, it was last week's episode. Raymond, his bully turned out to have really bad mental illness issues. And
Mhm.
since the school didn't handle bullying that well, they ignored the target, they ignored the bullier. And that this sounds kind of dark, but if you listen to last week's episode, that bully got executed at one point because he was a serial killer.
Oh my god.
That's how
Oh.
bad it got.
Mhm.
Nobody nobody took nobody looked into his mental health while he was bullying people, and Raymond told me, if you listen to last week's episode as well, he was being bullied as well. So, you had Raymond's bullying bullying him, and then the
Mhm.
bully had a bully bullying him back, and the school just left it alone, and so this
It's
child at
deadly.
that time, if the school would just stepped in, say, let's get social services involved. Let's look into your home life. Let's look into what's going on outside of school. Let's
Right.
look into what's
Let's
going
get you
on
some
in
support,
school.
right?
Yeah, but when you leave mental health unchecked,
Agree.
kids are gonna act up. You gotta look at this stuff seriously. And I feel like the schools are starting to step up a little bit more on the mental health. I know at least in my district, they got the Hope Squad, it's called. It's a nationwide program.
Yes, you and I've talked about that, yeah.
Yeah, so that is going pretty strong in Mankato, which is really good. But that's a start, but I wanna see a program or I wanna see something to help kids before they get to that point. Like, we
Agreed.
shouldn't have a kid reaching to that point where they need to talk to a peer because they're on the verge of suicide. They have suicidal thoughts. I don't want a kid waiting that long. That's too late. I'm
Right.
glad we have it. It's another barrier, but we still gotta fix the line. It's still this ain't good and this is not good enough. And
Agreed.
I
Agreed.
really think the kid who's being the bully, I know as a parent you get a bully child like, oh that dang kid, if I could see him, but like let's look at this kid's life. Why is he bullying people? Because as
Yeah.
one of my friends said, Lupe, bullying's gotta be tough. It's gotta be tough to bully somebody. It's gotta be
Mhm.
a lot of work.
It's like Barbara, our mentor Barbara, she says it's not natural, it's not necessary, it's not normal. Uh,
Yeah,
me attacking you, Tim, right now is not a normal activity, right?
correct. Yep,
And, even if you and I got into an argument today, it's conflict because 'cause we're
yep,
equals, and I am not trying to harm you, I'm just trying to tell you I'm right and you're wrong.
yep,
That's conflict. As an adult, we have conflict resolution, we know how to do some of that, right? Maybe we say we agree to disagree. If I start bullying you, if I see that pain in your eye and I keep going, that's bullying. And, if I throw a punch, that's probably bullying too. And so you have as an adult, you can go call the police. You can call I don't have anybody that oversees me, but you could call an HR manager. We have these things as adults. Kids, they don't have that, right? And and if I were to attack you, the police aren't going to say, "All right, Drew and Tim, sit down and work it out. Just work it out. It's conflict." No. No, I
yeah,
did something wrong. There should be a consequence. Now I have an opportunity to make it right eventually too. Just like I think that's important. Like kids who engage in bullying activity that they're harming another kid, they have an opportunity just like they learn to do that behavior, they can learn to do a different behavior. And I think you're absolutely right. There's hurt kids.
yep,
There's something going on in their life somewhere where they feel like they want that power elsewhere. And there is statistics about the bully. So the kid that's being bullied, that the kid that bully the kid that's being bullied and then bullies another kid. Those
yeah,
kids are statistically the odds are against them in a lot of ways unless they can get some help. So, it's bad enough for a kid who's being bullied. It's really bad for a kid who engages in bullying, but those kids that participate in both, there's usually mental health problems down the road. There can be PTSD, anxiety, there could be addiction coming their way, difficulty getting jobs, things like that. So we've got it. You're absolutely right. We've got to look out for these kids. And you said we're going to leave the home life out of it, and I understand we can't talk about everything, but that's part of it too, right?
Yeah, it
We
is.
get to, as a parent, I get to set an example. If I'm angry at someone, for whatever reason, my kids don't have to know about it, and they don't have to take that on themselves.
Yep. Yeah, and let's forgot on a quick topic of home life, especially in those households where the spouses are just arguing with each other.
Yeah.
And that's how kids learn how to handle conflict or issues. If they see that, like, oh, okay, this is how we do it. Like, what, it's hard to control someone's home life.
Mhm.
It's easier to control a public environment because you can set policies, you can set procedures, but you have to follow them, and everybody has to be on board. And you have to have people kind of watching out for like, why is this kid doing this? And
Yeah.
even the kids who act up and misbehave, a lot of it, they're just needing attention.
Mhm.
And why are they needing attention? And as our superintendent said to this one family, kids are just being kids.
Oh.
Really? Does kids go after other kids with scissors? So we talked about culture, talked about listening. What else? Like, would parents say, man, I really wish the school would do this?
So I'm gonna cite another. I did a little deep dive into this several years ago. I read a study about if a child feels like they have one trusted adult at school, the likelihood of them contemplating suicide and having severe mental health struggles goes down. And that one person can be a teacher, it can be a paraprofessional, it can be the school bus driver, the playground monitor. So I think it's important for those adults that work in the school system, they can make a big difference in the lives of these kids, right?
Yeah.
Just to have a connection, because maybe that child just can't have a connection for whatever reason at home at this time. If they have someone they can trust and go talk to, I mean, and that's mental health, but it's also bullying too. But it's so important. We have an opportunity as adults to make a big difference. Just by reaching out, and making sure kids are okay, having more of
And
a
teachers,
personal.
teachers like the front line of defense for that because
Mhm,
there are
mhm.
the ones
Yep.
that see these kids every day, besides their parents, of course. Drew, is there anything else you would like to share with us about what schools can do to help prevent bullying?
Inclusivity, and you do it by example, right? You make sure everybody's involved, and
Yeah,
even the kid that's having struggles, you make sure they're involved too. It starts at the top up, so it needs to be the administrators doing these kind of things, showing these kind of things. And you've probably seen the video. One of my favorite videos out there is the teacher standing in front of the classroom greeting the kids, and the kids can choose between like four different ways: do high five or handshake
yeah,
or
I've seen that
bump, or
video. Yep,
that stuff is awesome. That's it's the teacher gets to connect with every single child walking through the
yeah.
door.
And then
You know,
for educators, if your school like my district is doing this, stop labeling kids by race. Stop in
I
your
agree.
reports to the school board. Just stop saying disappointed, we failed the non-whites, or we disappointed the just say we're failing these group of kids. Just say we're
Yeah,
failing these group of
yeah.
kids. It's very simple. Change your language. It's going to make the dynamic of your presentation. It's going to make you look better as a person, first of all, because you're not using the language. I do understand that the state needs to know demographics. That's just part of the state
Mhm.
education. They need to know how many Hispanics, how many Caucasians, how many African American. I get that. That part can go to the state and stay at the state. But when you're presenting your reports for the school, like this is our attendance, this is our grades, just say we have a group of kids who are struggling at reading, so we're going to track these kids. You
Mhm.
don't need to sit there and put a label on it. Even though it may be true, like, okay, we have a high percentage of this race, that's fine. But when you put a label on a kid, you're leaving out the kid on the other side of the table that should be with these kids because that kid needs help as well, just as much as they need help. So just start saying all kids. It's really simple to say. Easy fix. You don't even need a policy to do that. You just gotta start changing the language. We have a group of kids that we are having trouble getting through on passing their reading and math or science scores.
Mhm.
Here's what we're gonna do to help these group of kids. It's so simple. And I sit there and I bang my head on the table, like, why? But the current school board that I have, even though they say they're for all kids, they're making the teachers do it. And actually, the principal at one of my schools said he forced his teachers to track only a certain race of kids, and the teachers were uncomfortable with it. But then they joked around like, "Well, we got used to being uncomfortable." Ha ha ha. I was like, "Oh, no wonder why we got division in this country.
Yeah,
We can't use the word inclusivity. Boo. We can't be inclusive if we're not being inclusive. I just
that's
don't
right.
understand it.
That's
But
right.
it's
Yeah,
just
we
simple
can
language
talk all
words.
we want. We have to do some action, right? Yeah, and, you said about the labels too, and I'm real careful. I don't label kids as bullies.
Yep,
I say they engage in that kind of behavior because they have an opportunity to not
correct,
engage in that behavior going forward, you know?
correct.
So, yeah,
But when you're running an anti-bullying platform, you gotta use that word anti-bullying
I know, I
for
know.
school board. But that's why I always say though too, the kid who's doing the bullying, I always say the kid who's doing the bullying,
Mhm,
they need to be looked at too, because we can't just forget about that kid. Because I've
absolutely.
already heard in my podcast, I already heard 2 horrible stories of the bully that's no longer with us today because of mental health, because they had mental health issues that went unchecked. And
Yeah,
the schools could have looked into this at an early age and started getting this kid help and resources. But
that's right.
we can't keep saying kids will be kids because,
No, no, it's wrong. We that's an absolute horrible statement to say about bullying. Kids will be kids. Mm-mm.
well, Drew, you did say you can help out. I shouldn't say help out, but you're available to anybody in this
Mhm.
in this country. If people want to find you, get advice from you, maybe donate to your not for profit, how can they do that?
So, probably the easiest way is on our website. It's you can find it 2 different ways. It's bullyingrrc.org or bullyingrecoveryresourcecenter.org. There's a phone number on there too. There's a form that parents can fill out, and we'll get back to you, and follow up and see how we can be of assistance. We have helped families across the country, and we work under certain laws in Colorado, but there's basic things that we can talk about with any family that might be able to get them on the right path, or who they could help, find possibly in their local place that, if they need an educational expert or possibly a lawyer, God help them, we can tell them what type of lawyer might be best to help if that's what they need to do.
Awesome, and I will put your information into into the description of the show. So if you're listening on audio, just click on the show description; it'll be right there. Or if you're on YouTube, you saw it go across your screen when Drew gave the address. So, Drew, thank you so much for coming on again.
Thank you, Tim. I always enjoy talking with you. You're fighting the good fight, and I'm so glad we're in the corner together.
Well, have a good day.
Thank you, Tim.
And for myself, you can always find us at our very own website, which is www.breakingbullying.com. You can also reach out to us at our email address if you have a story of your own bullying to share, or for whatever reason you want to get a hold of us. Our email address is breakbullyinghere@gmail.com. Now, if you're a victim of bullying and you don't know where to turn, there is online resources to help you. The first is the government's very own anti-bullying website, and the address is www.stopbullying.gov. And other online resource is www.pacer.org/bullying. Now, if you have had thoughts of suicide or of self-harm, we implore you to stop. Reach out to the National Suicide Hotline. That number is very simple. It's 988. I'm Tim Flynn, and thank you for listening, and we will be back next week to continue the conversation to break the silence on bullying.